up, folks? Welcome to another episode of the Shots Fire podcast with DP. I am the host, Despop, aka J Seamanhole, and today is 4 May 2026, and may the 4th be with you all, except Democrats. Fuck off. Today, I'd like to put the politics and humor aside and delve into the mind, into my rotted, fucked up brain. So, let me talk about the mind virus, as I now call it, otherwise known as PTSD, heretofore sometimes called the demon, and even at times, the protector. Herd immunity. We've all heard the term by now. Probably never heard of it before 2020 when Anthony Fauci told us that's all that was needed to knock out COVID. Not distancing, not quarantines or masks. That was before his swamp puppeteers whooped him back in line. Well, most of us have a basic understanding of herd immunity. Once enough of the population gets infected and successfully beats it, the community has enough antibodies to move past it. It's not that the virus disappears, no. At that point, we all become carriers, but have beaten it so many times we don't even know when we're infected anymore. Example, smallpox had made its way through Europe for years. It killed most of the weak off, but the strong grew a herd immunity. And when those Europeans came over, yither yonder, being carriers now immune to the disease, we know what happened with the pre-existing settlers to this land that had never been exposed to it. Now, whether you believe the stories about blankets infused with smallpox or not, as if they knew how to bottle a virus back then, whatever, the Indians weren't safe until they too developed that same immunity. But it's not simply about gaining antibodies, as I believe it. I've also heard that viruses want to survive. When a virus kills its host, that individual virus dies with its host. It does not want that. So over time, the virus adapts and mutates to live and thrive within its host freely without killing it. It's all trial and error, the virus doing its job, the human body performing as it should. And it got me to thinking about this awful mind affliction, PTSD. Now, it's taken me about 20 years of dealing with this motherfucker to come to a few of mine own observations. One, PTSD is my protector. It's in all of us. Just think of your mind as a long hallway with doors running along the left and right side. Each door is its own entity. One is family, one is friends, one is finances. You got a fear door, a trigger door, a work door, and everything else. And down the end of this hallway is a locked, reinforced door. That's where the demon lay, the protector. Now, luckily, most of us will never see that door opened ever. But once it does, once the genie is out of the bottle, it can never be put back in. It's out for good. Why do I call it a protector? It's the protector of the subconscious. You don't even know it's there. It springs out in your worst possible moment, usually during a situation in which death is a very real possibility, most often when death should have occurred, but somehow you made it. That's when the subconscious decides, you've seen too much, I'll take over from here. So, how does it take over? How does it protect you? By making you a little fucking bitch. That's how. See? Now, this is only my feeling on the matter. Please don't take this for medical advice. But if you're like me, you've seen enough doctors to know that they don't give a shit. They don't want to fix you. They want to bill you. They give you just enough to keep you coming back every 2 weeks to talk about nothing. But back to your protector. Well, to me, that demon has been asleep your entire life up to that point. Even though it's part of your subconscious, it hasn't been paying attention to the world. It doesn't know people. It doesn't know society. It doesn't know the rules. It protects you by defaulting to everything is a threat. Everything. That's how it thinks it's protecting you. But it can't decipher a true threat. You might have sat with your back to the wall in a restaurant before if you were a cop like me, but it wasn't mandatory. Now you leave the restaurant if the right table isn't available. That's not protection, that's fucking sabotage. And it will sabotage every fucking thing in your life: family, friendships, relationships, work. And with enough sabotage, where does your mind go? Exactly, to the unthinkable. You know you're different. You know you're the odd man out, and you start to believe that you're crazy. You're not. You're as normal can be, and your brain is doing its job. The problem is you begin to fear and obey your protector more than you actually fear the world, and you convince yourself that the protector wants you gone. But it don't. No. Much like a virus, your demon doesn't want you to die because it dies with you. It is you. It just doesn't know how to act. It doesn't know how to cope. It can't converse with others. It can't enjoy happy, magical moments. It's always dread and despair and threats. Threats everywhere. But believe me, it does not want you to die. It truly thinks it's helping you. And it took me long enough to see it. But gun pressed to my head by my own hand, something happened. Sometimes I'm convinced I pulled the trigger because the good that was waiting on the other side seems heaven sent. I turned inward. I walked down that long ass hallway. I kicked that fucking door in. I killed that demon by owning it. This entity that I feared more than life itself was nothing but a scared little puppy. The kind of puppy that barks louder than it's worth. You know, kind of like small man's disease. All that tough talk, and this little bitch had its tail tucked between its legs. But when I held out that leash, you know it went fucking berserk. Tongue out, tail wagging. It thought it was time for a walk or a ride in the car or something. It wanted to be leash. It wanted to be controlled. And I can tell you, it was pure fucking energy. All those years of zapping my sleep, this mofo was banking it all. I turned into cornholio. I had more energy than I could handle. And just like an untrained puppy, it often misbehaves and acts up and tugs too hard, but all it takes is a slight jerk of the leash to pull it back in line. Sometimes it might even need the Hassan Piker treatment. But make no mistake about it. You can face it, you can contain it, and you can put it on a leash. It can become your ally. And just like a virus, it wants to live. It just does its best to try to kill you before it finds its sweet spot and settles down. I don't know how else to put it, folks. I don't know what else to say. I am willing to embarrass myself and speak of my weaknesses, and there are plenty of them. But we all have a story, and those of us that have survived owe it to the rest to speak up. I just wish I had turned inward sooner. I would have been a better husband and father. I would have been a better cop. I would have been a better man. And I say again, this is not medical advice, and I urge you to do what works for you. Doctors, music, comedy, art. What does it matter how gay or corny your source is if it works for you? PTSD is not, and I repeat, not a one-size-fits-all treatment. But even with doctors, understand this: it's in you. The work is yours to do, and it's not as hard as you think. You got this. Now, please join me for the final call. On this date, May 4th in 2019, Canine Officer Jordan Harris Sheldon of the Mooresville PD in North Carolina was shot and killed while conducting a traffic stop on West Plaza Drive after 10 p.m. He was transported to a local hospital where he succumbed to his wounds. The subject who shot him fled the scene and committed suicide in a nearby apartment. Officer Sheldon had served with the Mooresville PD for 6 years. He is survived by his mother, stepfather, father, stepmother, fiance, sister, brother, and grandmother. Also on this date, back in 1969, police officer Azel Harris, Birmingham PD, Alabama, was shot and killed while moonlighting at a local freight line warehouse at 4th Avenue and 3rd Street North in Birmingham. An employee informed him that two men were stealing lawnmowers from the warehouse docks and loading them in their car. When Officer Harris confronted the suspects, a shootout ensued, and Officer Harris was mortally wounded. The suspects, 23 and 29, were apprehended, convicted of murder, and sentenced to death. In 1972, the sentences were commuted to life when the U.S. Supreme Court declared the death penalty unconstitutional. Officer Harris had served with the Birmingham PD for 15 years. He was survived by his wife and 5 children. Lastly, on this date, back in 1913, Officer Byron Wood, San Francisco PD, California, was shot and killed after responding to a report of a man attempting to force entry into 130 Eddy Street. When Officer Wood and his partner approached, the man fled with the officer in pursuit. When they reached the corner of Turk Street and Taylor Street, the suspect turned and fired 5 shots from his revolver. Officer Wood fired once, and both men fell to the ground. Officer Wood was dead, and the suspect was wounded. When backup officer arrived, they arrested the suspect, who was wounded and had his revolver pressed against his head. He was pulling the trigger, but the gun was empty. Subject died of his wounds 6 days later. Officer Wood had been with the agency for 11 years. He was survived by his wife, child, father, and brother. He is buried in Holy Cross Catholic Cemetery in San Mateo, California. May they all continue to rest in peace. And we'll finish with the timeline cleanse. But before we go, to all those out there struggling with that demon, remember to stop, breathe, and survive. Later, bitches.
Gentle.
Get him, Jay. I'm Mary Poppins, y'all!
You got DP'd.